Your Earth vibration is approximately 7½ cycles per second, and you can find the frequency of any planet by taking the measurement of its circumference in whatever measurement you choose to use, in this case perhaps miles in your case, and you can divide that circumference into the speed of light, and that will give you the frequency of any particular body in space. You understand?
Yes.
Then, if you will avail yourself of understanding also the following frequencies, you can create certain patterns of harmonics that will have very profound effects upon physical beings in your particular dimension of experience. As we have already mentioned, 7½ cycles per second. This is an approximation. If you will divide the circumference of your planet into the speed of light, you will get the absolute value of this particular measurement. Beyond this, you will also want to understand that 23 cycles per second is also a fundamental frequency that will give you certain kinds of overlapping harmonics that have to do with the number 5, which is the number of humanity. This also will create star-like patterns. Experiment with the whole concept of standing wave phenomena and realize how certain geometric forms are created by certain harmonic frequencies, especially if you can create harmonic frequencies that exemplify the tetrahedral structure. Tetrahedrons and spiral structures are the two most powerful structures that could be represented in any harmonic that you could create that will have the most profound impact upon the human psyche. Do you understand? Does this help answer your question so far?
Yes.
Now you can also understand something else if you wish to go up into the electronic scales. 333,000 cycles per second is the threshold frequency between your physical reality and non-physical reality. If you begin experimenting with that frequency and how that frequency can interact with itself in various ways, you will also create actual dimensional windows or gateways or doorways between physical and non-physical reality that will actually allow people to unlock their mentality and have, shall we say, visions. You understand? Does this help you?
Yes, it does.
Is there anything else you wish to discuss about this?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much for your interaction.
Allow yourselves the opportunity just to know. You can enjoy this experience. You do not have to be too serious-minded about it. The more light you are with it, the higher your vibration will be. The threshold, the borderline between what you call physical reality and non-physical reality as a vibrational frequency is approximately 333,000 cycles per second. Below that, you are physical beings manifesting in a physical way. Above that, your energy is non-physical. In times past, in ancient Atlantean times, in Lemurian times, and some of the ascended masters on your planet now and in the past have very often attained or lived at a constant cycle of between 100,000 to 250,000 cycles per second. Most of you have been existing somewhere around 40,000 cycles. What does that tell you? Allow yourself now to know, however, that over the course of the next, perhaps 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 years, you're going to boost that up somewhere closer to 70,000 cycles per second, and you've already made a lot of progress as it is. Even to individuals who existed in your planet even as little as 300 of your years ago, were one of those individuals to be in your present time now and see all of you, you would appear to that individual to actually be glowing a little more brightly than that individual would be used to, because your vibration has accelerated even from that point forward to a higher pitch than used to exist upon your planet. This is the idea of becoming light body. You will remain as physiological beings to some degree for quite some time. Eventually, as our own civilization is doing, you will evolve out of a physical reality into a non-physical reality, and what you decide to do with yourselves then is really up to you, just as it is now. But the idea is that you move into a fourth density state of higher vibratory reality, and this is simply the process of aligning and becoming as close as you possibly can be, your higher selves as best as you can incarnate on Earth to raise that pitch and to allow yourself to become less differentiated between the idea of non-physical and physical reality. Physical reality is a dream, yet it is real. But that's what reality is. It's what you dream it to be. The change in your dream will change the experience of the dream, of the physical reality. And the more you recognize that you actually are physical reality, the less difference there is between you and physical reality. You don't then exist in physical reality. You're not at the mercy of the physical reality. Physical reality is you. You recognize in that sense that your consciousness is not literally in your body. Your body is in your consciousness. Turn that around and it will make all the difference in your world. Now, one thing more. Understand that in terms of electromagnetic pulsation frequencies, the threshold of going from what you call your third density dimensional reality to fourth is approximately 144,000 cycles per second. Going from your physical reality to total etheric, non-physical reality, the threshold is 333,000 cycles per second. Individuals on your planet that you call ascended masters are functioning somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 cycles per second. Let that be a guiding clue for you in the work that you will do. All right? Thank you.
One more thing, Bashar.
Yes.
Could you tell me my frequency?
Do you mean right now?
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
We did not catch the translation on this side.
Yes.
Well, before you said, yeah, it was about 138,000 cycles per second. When you said, yeah, it dropped to about 117. Now it is about 147.
Oh.
Because you're laughing.
Uh-huh.
You understand?
Yes.
All right. Now it's leveling out somewhere around 142 to 145. You're fluctuating a little bit up and down, but that's all right. It always will.
Okay.
Does this help you?
Yes, it does.
Why, thank
you.
Good day, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you?
Excellent.
All right.
I wanted to ask you two things. One, the last one is about the ET, the Las Vegas ET, and
Las Vegas E.T.
the Gray. I have questions on that, but
You are talking about the interaction with the Gray.
oh yes. Do you want me
All
to
right.
do that now and then?
It is up to you. We are simply clarifying what you mean.
Okay. Let me do that now. But the other one is
All right, I will let you.
more important. But
Oh, I see.
I'll get
All right,
this.
more important.
What vibrational frequency was the Gray from Las Vegas at?
This would not, in a sense, make sense to you, because they do not translate as individual frequencies per se. Do you understand? They are a hive mentality.
What is the hive mentality vibrating at? Can you tell us that?
Yes. One moment. Approximately 257,000 cycles per second.
Okay. The other question on that is, they said that you said that they were operational, that 7 of their chakras were unused, and I was wondering if this was like a degeneration,
Yes.
or will they be using them at all? And
Yes.
they will.
As the hybrids.
And all of ours are operational.
Well, more or less. Some of them need some tuning, but more or less, yes.
And that would be done through those, maybe some of those exercises from the Las Vegas.
That
tape.
can be of assistance along with anything else that your imagination calls forth into your reality as being capable of helping you in that area, yes.
And with those exercises, the Las Vegas exercises, I keep falling asleep, and I know you said on the tape that I'm still getting it, but I really would like to be awake for it. Am I still getting it even though it's from the tape and I'm not in that?
In a way you are, yes. Although I will say that there is another way you could get it if you would allow yourself to be awake.
Okay, I'll do that. The question I have is...
One moment.
Okay.
The idea of expressing the collective as 257,000 cycles per second still has nothing at all to do, in this particular case, with a representation, per se, of integration in the way you understand it. The idea is a slightly different expression of that vibratory frequency than what 257,000 cycles per second would mean to a human.
Can you liken it to ours?
In other words, the idea of a human operating at 257,000 cycles per second would be considered what you would call an ascended master while still in physical reality. The collective gray society operating at that frequency functions on that level in certain ways, but this does not mean that each individual component expresses that vibration.
Exactly, because they're different levels. The one that the person was communicating with in Las Vegas, is there any way you can tell us what that level of gray?
No, it cannot be broken out, but simply understand that they dive into or partake of the collective, but it is not expressed in the same way that you would be capable of expressing it, being that you also allow for emotionality which they no longer can express. It is expressed as a kind of intensity of energy and focus of intention and agenda, but it is not expressed in the same way that you would, as the balance of the idea of mentality and emotionality or spirituality.
Well, when they interact with us, does it up their vibration?
In some senses, yes, and in some senses it also ups yours. But again, the two frequencies are not exactly compatible, nor are they representative of exactly the same universal domain. So, in most areas of the frequency, it is non-translatable in either direction. Only a small fragment of that vibration is translatable in either direction.
Is that some of the problems with making the hybrids?
Yes. That has been one of the big ones. One of the biggest challenges is to find a way to allow the creation of the hybrids to happen within the particular frequency domain that represents the frequency domain wherein those two universal realities do come together in a balanced way.
And how are they doing on that?
Fine, thank you.
Oh, yes, you look wonderful. Thank you for that.
Explain how we can create knowing what our frequency is at any given moment, either intuitively or by using some kind of a device.
You're asking for an actual reading of the frequency?
I think the idea is that a lot of times individuals would like to know what their frequency is, but at this point maybe they feel the only way they can know that is by asking you.
I see. All right. Number one, you can always know by asking yourself. When you get to a point where you are extremely clear with yourself, you will know. But herein lies the paradox. When you get to a point of being extremely clear with yourself, you won't care. And so because you won't care, you won't know. And it won't matter. Do you understand? That's the paradox. Let's wipe out the self-measurement in that sense. Where am I? Am I at 124,000 cycles per second? I'm at 124,500 cycles per second. Oh no, today I'm at 123. I must be doing something wrong. You're going to spend too much time focusing on the idea of the numbers and not enough time focusing on the experience of being where you are. Do you follow?
Yeah. So I guess there's no way, huh?
Yes, there is. All right. Here it is. I'll give it to you this way. Understand it's a choice, however. You can either be clear within yourself, follow your joy, not care what frequency you're at because you know it must be the right one because you're doing what excites you, or you can say that what excites you is to simply know your frequency. Okay. But if that's what excites you, then that's it. That's it. Yes. In other words, look at this. If it is really the most exciting thing at this given moment for you to know your frequency of energy, and then with clarity, because this is representative of the most exciting thing that you want, you know it, 156,000 cycles per second. All right, well, now that you know it, now what do you want to do?
Right, well, and there's no point in doubting it because you know
I understand, but the point is,
no, I agree.
Yes, you can know it. However, in the very next instant, when you become excited about doing something else, your frequency isn't 156,000 cycles per second anymore. It was only, or down, but it's only at that frequency when that is the result of that particular moment's excitement to know what the frequency is. In the very next moment, it's changed.
But to use it as biofeedback,
but you can't even always do that.
Many of you don't even do that. I'll give you an example. Let's say you became very excited about knowing what your frequency was, and you go, all right, I'm clear, that's it, that's my highest excitement, I want to know. Ah, bing, I have it, 156,000 cycles per second. Is that all?
No, then.
Right.
Pay attention. Pay attention. Any measurement of comparison at all, in a sense, will contradict what it is you say you want. If you use that vibration as a yardstick in any way, you are, in some sense, taking yourself out of the moment. Do you follow? Yes. Now, I'm not saying in the next moment you can't be a higher frequency, but the only way you're going to do that is to actually completely forget where you were a moment ago. So it doesn't relate. It really doesn't relate, because one moment is not really connected to the next until you make a connection. So even if you say, oh, I'm at 156,000 cycles per second, that is better than I was yesterday, I must be improving, you flatten the whole line right there. Because you're making a measurement, a comparative measurement, that actually has absolutely no relevance to where you actually could be in the next moment, depending on what excites you the most. It has really no relevance except for that moment. No relevance to any other moment whatsoever. So you can't really use it in that sense as a measurement of improvement.
Well, why can't you use it as a measurement to achieve a certain in the same way that you use meditation waves like alpha and beta and theta?
That you can do, but that has nothing to do with the idea of measuring an improvement. It has to do only with the recognition that a certain frequency might be conducive to a certain state that you have experienced before, and that if you simply recreate that frequency, you might be capable of recreating other things in a similar fashion. But again, it doesn't relate to any other moment, except that one. But that also doesn't imply that you have to even really know what the frequency is per se. All you have to really do is, in a sense, recognize the state. Do you follow? It doesn't necessarily have to be labeled with a particular number, is all we are actually saying. Because the way the question was asked was in reference to knowing the particular frequency number.
But for instance, there's a frequency of the rotation of, forgive me for being ignorant as to what it was.
That's all right.
Then that has a certain energy.
Yes.
We're relating that number to that energy just in the same way that we're naming a state as theta that necessarily doesn't necessarily have a name. We're naming it as human beings.
All right. I understand what you are saying, that there is perhaps a corresponding numerical value for any particular energy state. But the point we are making is this. If you create with your excitement the knowledge that you are now vibrating at 156,000 cycles per second, and you say, all right, I've got to remember 156,000 cycles per second, that's the vibrational energy level. I want to remember that frequency number. Now, you tell me, what's going to happen if you focus on 156,000 cycles per second? No. What's going to happen when you focus on that? And in that state, what was the only piece of information you received? Just the vibrational frequency. So there's nothing else you can do in that. By remembering that number, all you can do is access that number. Do you follow? That was the number, that was the frequency that gave you the information of the number. If you go back to that number, all it will do is give you the state and the frequency that is germane to accessing the number.
So in other words,
Like a loop.
It's a self-contained
in
loop.
other words, there's not actually a set, it's not like a scale that you move up and down. It's more like just anywhere along the can be accessed instantly.
All right, one moment. This will require a little bit of what you call a primary physics lesson. Listen for the paradox. We are not saying there is not a corresponding frequency number to a state in which you can create other things. What we are saying is you either in that state create other things and don't know what the number is, or you know what the number is and can't create other things. In your physics, it's called the uncertainty principle. You can neither know simultaneously the momentum of an object, the speed of an object, and at the same time know its position. Do you understand?
Well, what about like...
Wait. Do you understand the uncertainty principle in your quantum physics?
Yes. Basically.
All right, listen again. It is important that you understand it before you start asking more questions or making more statements. If you throw a ball, you can know that the ball may be going at 100 miles an hour. But if you measure how fast it's going, then you can't focus on any given point of the ball's trajectory. If you focus on a given point of where the ball is at any given moment, then in a sense the measurement freezes the ball and you can't know how fast it's going. You can only know where it is, or you can know how fast it's going. You cannot know where it is and how fast it's going simultaneously. So, with this frequency idea, yes, there is a corresponding frequency to every particular state, and in that state, you can do perhaps many things that you could not necessarily do at a lower frequency state. And we are not saying that you can't empirically understand that, well, I know I can do generally this at 156,000 cycles per second, and I know I can't do it at 144. But the point is that when you're in that state, you don't really know exactly what your frequency is, because if you did, that's all you would know. You would not necessarily be able to manifest anything else at that moment if you knew both exactly the frequency and were trying to experience the state simultaneously.
Well, what I was talking about is being able to use it like biofeedback to increase it to a higher and higher level so that you can get up to like what you talked about before, the 333, the 666, to be able to access those other realms.
I understand what you are asking, but I am telling you that you are taking the long way around. Okay. The answer to your question in that sense is, if you have created for yourself a moment where you know what frequency you are at when you're in a high energy state, then the next time simply aim for the feeling of the high energy state and don't care what the actual number is. That's what will allow you to expand beyond that frequency and do more.
I was wondering if you...
Wait a minute. Speak up so that all may hear what you have to share.
For telepathy.
Telepathy.
Yes, when you're experiencing actually hearing another person's voice or words.
Yes.
Within yourself.
Yes.
What frequency level?
It does not require necessarily that you attain a particular frequency level to experience telepathy. All it requires is that you be on the same frequency as someone else. One moment, do you understand that?
So depending on...
Telepathy simply means you are synchronized with the frequency of the individual you are sharing the thought with. It's just resonance identification. You can be at a very low frequency and experience telepathy as long as you're both on the same frequency.
I got it.
You figured that out now?
Yeah, got that.
Does that help you?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
All right.
Oh, I have another one for you.
All right, speak up so that
All
all
right.
may hear.
Before you do that,
Wait, okay.
I want to clarify.
Yes.
Is it a general truth then to say that judgment
doesn't
removes you
broadcast.
from the experience? Yeah. And in that way
It removes you from that experience and gives you the experience of judgment.
Yes. So
All things are an experience. And if you want to experience judgment, then judge.
but it's either or. I mean, if you're in the business of saying, wow, I'm doing really well, that's taking you away from what you're trying to do.
In some
if your
senses,
purpose
yes.
was to do it.
As you mean that pragmatically, yes. And in fact, in some ways, we are not saying that you cannot recognize the state that you are in. For there is a constant state of recognition on what you would call higher frequency levels that translates out to an overwhelming sense of unconditional love and gratitude for what it is you are experiencing simultaneous within the experience itself as part of the experience. The idea, therefore, though, is that at the moment you start to, in a sense, analyze that, you somehow reduce the frequency. You follow?
And that's why you can't create what you want if you have doubt or any other feelings around what you want to create. You just have to keep vibrating there.
All right, now again, Yes, on one empirical level, but let's keep this honest, because whatever it is, now pay attention, this is critical, this is critical, this is critical. Whatever it is empirically you create, by definition, is what you wanted. Or you would have gotten something else. And when I say what you wanted, it means that's the motivational, definitional result that is in sync with what you strongly believe to be true at that moment. Therefore, in a sense, it is what you wanted, even if empirically you know there's an idealized idea above and beyond that. What you get is what you want, because you have to learn how to use that in a way, in a functional, constructive, positive way, to allow yourself to understand how this is a part of getting that, instead of an interruption in getting that. So this is still what you want. In other words, as we have said, what is needs to be fully accepted before what is can become something else. If you don't use the stepping stone that's there, you leave a gap and can't get to the stepping stone beyond. So you have to acknowledge that what is what you wanted. And by acknowledging that what is what you wanted, you can learn how to use what is in a constructive and positive way, seeing it as part of everything that is your excitement instead of an interruption in it. Does that make sense?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
Someone asked, "How can I strengthen my intuition so I can be more easily pass my exams?"
Everyone, act on your highest excitement to the best of your ability with no insistence or assumption as to the outcome.
And that will make someone more photographically designed.
It will give them the ability to know what they need to know when they need to know it, instead of relying on memory, which doesn't really exist anyway.
Okay, so that's really what following your excitement does. Is
it puts you into the present, it puts you into the state of being that accesses the information that is relevant to the state of being that you're in. We know what we need to know exactly when we need to know it. Not a moment sooner than we need to know it, but not a moment later than we need to know it. It's just there, because all information is here and now. And if you simply become the vibrational state that is the equivalent of the information, then you will know what you need to know. Because information, like water and electricity, goes along the path of least resistance and follows the resonance that it matches.
So basically what you're saying is that's the way to have a hyperconductive brain.
Yes. Go into the gamma state. Gamma frequencies.
And that's where you come from, right?
Well, we come from higher. We also embody the Epsilon state, which you haven't yet begun to understand. But you're beginning to. But gamma state now can become more common. It's experienced by, again, those that are, as you say, in peak performance, in the zone, loving what they do, deep meditations, go into the gamma state. That aligns you. It makes your brain more hyperconductive, more associative, more accessible and able to access. It synthesizes information more efficiently and produces information more efficiently. Therefore, the gamma state is what will allow you to access what you need when you need it.
So it does seem that the channel's brain also has become more hyperconductive over the years as he's been channeling you.
Well, we are rubbing off on him more and more. And by giving him the state, immersing him in the state of our energy, he is gravitating to it more and more. And it's becoming his own version of that state.
I know that the gamma state is associated with the idea of seeing things from the highest mountaintop.
Yes.
That kind of higher mind perspective.
Yes.
So
anywhere above 40 cycles per second in the brain, all the way up to 100. Now, your species for a while will usually hover around between 40 and 50 cycles per second. When we operate in the gamma state, it is typically in the upper registers, and then we go up into the epsilon state, which is much higher than that, up to, again, the idea of 333 cycles per second in the brain, matching the frequency of the 333,000 cycle per second of the border between physical and non-physical reality as a harmonic of it.
So, like when you're channeling right now, what kind of frequency level are you talking about?
Right now, there is a frequency of about between 50 and 60 cycles per second in the gamma range, so about mid-range.
So when you tell someone their frequency is running
That's
around...
a different thing.
Okay, what is
when we
the
talk
difference?
about the idea of saying, oh, someone's frequency on average is about 140,000 cycles per second, we're talking about a subharmonic of the frequency at which the reality is being created. In other words, the reality that you experience is being created, as we said, billions of times per second. The tick of the clock, if you want to put it that way, is what you scientifically refer to as the Planck time. So this happens billions of times per second. But the frequencies that we're telling you that we perceive happening within you are usually subharmonics in relation to that frequency that are relevant for experiencing a physical reality. Above 333,000 cycles per second, you would experience non-physical reality. So our civilization on average usually operates in the 300,000 cycle range, whereas your civilization at this time on average is operating somewhere around 144,000 cycles per second.
So in relation to that 144,000 cycles per second,
yes,
how could we interpret what you're saying to us in terms of the frequency level instead of the...
We would have to explain the entire science to you,
really?
And then you would understand.
But you can't like just give us a number that is representative of the cycles per second in relation to how you've said it to other people in terms of experiencing your energy. I think the reason I'm honing in on that is that we've heard many different numbers. I know there have been people that have shifted all the way to like 225,000 cycles per second.
From time to time, yes.
Yeah. So like when we're sitting here listening to you,
yes,
the frequency that you're expressing is
usually around 250,000 cycles per second.
Okay.
But you don't always come up to that.
Because we don't match it, so we might only experience your message at 180,000 cycles
Correct.
per second.
Which means you're actually missing information that we're sending to you. This is one of the reasons why many times when a recording is made of information that we may be sharing with someone and they listen to it once and then they listen to it again, they often say, I heard things the second time I didn't hear the first time, that I swear weren't there, answered questions that I didn't even ask until now. Because you're getting a holographic, multi-dimensional message that you may not be in a frequency to hear until later.
So the beauty of that is that the way the universe works is depending on your frequency level, you receive different information from the exact same image or the exact same thing that is...
In the way that you mean that, yes.
Yes. So, for example, you could look at the table, the periodic table.
Yes.
And on our level, when we look at that, we're seeing a certain level of information.
Yes.
If your frequency is a lot higher, you will actually
yes.
see other levels of the periodic table.
Absolutely.
That is information that's not commonly available, right?
Absolutely. For example, if we looked at your periodic table element that you would call gold, we would see the gold, but we would also see what we could loosely term paragold, something on another level, a color that you can't even imagine, an element that you can't even imagine.
So it sounds like your delivery of information coming through Daryl with a lot of the gamma frequencies associated was determined as the rate that his brain could handle and also would be most relatable to people that are listening to you at this current time.
Yes, it's what we refer to in the first contact protocols as the bridge frequency, that which is most conducive to making the link and allowing for processing to occur between our different reality states.
I would like to know initially what my set point frequency is at this time on average from your analysis of my energy.
At this particular moment, fluctuating between 143,000 and 157,000 cycles per second.
Excellent. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, and when you mentioned my frequency, I understand that this particular physical form that I'm in, max is typically around 200 hertz. Is that correct?
Most humans on your planet operate somewhere between 40,000 to 50,000, maybe now and then 80,000 cycles per second. The fact that many that are exploring spirituality and expanding their consciousness will operate above 100 is relatively rare at this point. To be somewhere around 150,000 cycles per second is doing very well. Sometimes many of you will peak above 200,000 cycles per second when you are in a state of absolute highest passion. Our civilization typically operates somewhere around 300,000 cycles per second. So, that should give you some form of barometer as to where you might be at any given moment if you wish to do that. But please don't use it to measure yourself and find yourself wanting.
Okay.
It's a dynamically fluctuating thing, and it will always be representative, even though sometimes it may go up, and sometimes it may go down, and sometimes it may go up, and sometimes it may go down. The idea is goes up, gives you something to hold on to, gives you a vibration to imbue yourself with, but then goes down to give you a chance sometimes to apply it in your physical reality in a different way, and it might require a different frequency in which to do that. But even as it might go up and down, please remember, overall, because your intention is to expand and grow and be more of yourself, the up and down isn't this. The up and down is this.
Right.
It's always climbing.
It's
Yes?
my understanding that as you increase your personal frequency, you allow yourself to get to those higher realms of reality that you speak of, those more pleasant realities, except for the lower ones, which, you know, which cause a lot of trouble, from my understanding.
Say again?
Well, my goal is to keep increasing my frequency, as you just showed.
Yes.
But
you don't have to focus on it as a goal. All you need to do is act on your highest excitement every moment that you can to the best of your ability, with no insistence or assumption as to what the outcome ought to look like. That's the way you do it. That's the formula. That is the instruction manual.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. I will.
Does that help?
Yes.
All right.
Now, we have talked about the idea that what you call the channeling state is representative of a certain brainwave frequency that has come to be known on your world as the gamma frequency. Anytime you are involved in doing what you love to do, acting on your passion, when you are in the zone, in that arena of peak performance, paying attention to nothing else but what you're focused on, you are in the gamma state. You are in what is colloquially referred to now as the channeling state, where you can bring through more of yourself, where you can synchronize and harmonize your brain in such a way as to be a higher level processor of information, a synthesizer of information, and to access the information that you need, exactly how you need to access it, when you need to access it, and or share it with others from that state in a way that, as an output, is also more representative of a holistic perspective, a synthesized answer that provides as much holographic information as possible for what another individual may need in accessing the information through another or through themselves. But many of you have heard of certain brainwave frequencies that are common to your daily activity. When you are walking around in your day-to-day lives, when you are awake, it is typically referred to as the beta frequency. Now, this frequency operates below the idea of 40 cycles per second. Above 40 cycles per second is the gamma state. But below 40 cycles per second, you have the alert frequency, your day-to-day focus frequency, your personality structure frequency that allows you to remain focused in your experience of physical reality. And this generally goes from about 15 cycles per second to about 40 or so. And then you have the idea of your alpha state below that. And the alpha state allows you to begin to access different things in a different way on a deeper level, more within the imagination realms, more within the creative realms in that sense. And that will go down from the 15 cycles per second to about 8 cycles per second. And below that, you have what you call the theta state, which is a much deeper state where you have access to what is often called psychic awareness. That taps into the stream of collective consciousness in a very specific way that allows you to draw upon the information of the collective and to pick up on certain kinds of energy patterns that are representative of the structure and foundation of your physical reality, so as to bring forth information that can be expressed in a kind of a timeless way without so much rigidity or structure of space and time. And that will go down to, again, about the idea of 5 to 4 cycles per second. Now, below that, you have your delta state, which is what you experience in the deepest sleep. It is the healing state, the regeneration state, that which connects you to and plugs you back into the idea of spirit in such a way as to revitalize you, to re-energize your physical batteries, so to speak, to allow for rapid healing to take place. And you will find that that can go down to about 1 to 2 to maybe 3 cycles per second, up to maybe about 4 or 5 cycles per second. So a very deep state of rest, something that can sometimes also be found in what you might call a hypnotic state that allows you to really transcend the concept of time and space and allow yourself to flow through you the idea of higher energies that can allow for, as we said, reorganization, sort of like hitting your reset button to bring you back to zero so you can redefine yourself anew when you rise above that state. Now, going back to the gamma state, above 40 cycles per second, the channeling state, which allows for more synthesis of information and access of information in certain ways, as you go upwards, then, into what you might call 100 cycles per second, you are now in what might be called hypergamma, or a higher gamma state, that allows, again, for accessing certain things in other dimensions, accessing certain things that have to do with parallel realities, accessing information and awareness that has to do with connection to Oversoul and Source, and many other things of that nature. Now, there is also a state above that. When you go from 100 cycles per second in your brain to 200 cycles per second in your brain, you have now entered what is called the lambda state. Now, this is a state of extreme high functioning where you have access almost instantaneously to just about any information you may require, where you actually begin to perceive the barriers between dimensions breaking down, where you have multidimensional perspectives as the order of the day, as your natural way of seeing things, where you can really penetrate the idea of the veils that seem to separate one reality level from another, one consciousness state from another, where you really become a much more holistic and holographic kind of expression of consciousness. Now, this transmission has been labeled the Epsilon vibration, the Epsilon frequency, and you can be forgiven for thinking that the Epsilon frequency might in fact be the highest one, above the lambda state. It is not. The Epsilon frequency, paradoxically enough, is actually the lowest one. It actually functions below the delta state. The typical Epsilon frequency is actually 1/2 cycle per second. Very slow. But there is something going on quite different in the Epsilon state, and that is this. If you examine very closely the vibrational frequencies of the Epsilon state, as we say, being about 1/2 cycle per second, or 1 cycle, if you wish, every 2 seconds, you will notice that there is a modulation frequency buried within it. The modulation frequency buried within the Epsilon state, strangely enough, is absolutely identical to the lambda state. 200 cycles per second, disguised within, buried within a half cycle per second frequency. This creates a sympathetic and harmonic vibration with the lambda state. It completes the circle. You could say, in a sense, that the 200 cycle per second lambda state is riding on a carrier wave of the epsilon state, that this slow undercurrent, this very low frequency vibration, carries with it all the information necessary to keep pumping the lambda state. It reinforces the lambda state with this low vibration, kind of like a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, it pumps up the lambda state of 200 cycles per second. So you could say it's like the lambda state is riding the crests of the epsilon state, or the epsilon state, in a sense, is buried within the lambda state. It completes a circle, a cycle of one to the other, so that when you rely on the epsilon vibration, it creates a great deal of stability within you. It anchors you. It grounds you in a very powerful way, so that it makes it more possible for you to achieve the high-level frequencies of the higher hypergamma and lambda states. So it's a reinforcing harmonic that completes the cycle, going from highest to lowest to highest, and going through the spectrum of all of the frequency states in between. So it's not really a linear progression. It is a cyclic progression, going from lowest to highest, because each contains the other, implicit within the frequencies as an external or internal or differential modulation. Therefore, in understanding how to allow yourselves to access this epsilon frequency, it will actually help propel you and stabilize you in such a way as to make it easier for you to access the higher frequency gamma and lambda states as well, so that you can increase your ability and sensitize your senses to the possibility and the probability of seeing more interdimensionally and accessing the information that you need in life more automatically. Does this make some sense? Yeah. All right. Remember, the general vibrational frequency, on average, of people on your planet is somewhere between 40 to 50,000 cycles per second. People who are starting to explore and expand their consciousness are usually going to be somewhere up around 150,000 cycles per second. So yes, there are that many people that are feeling out of control, out of touch, disconnected from their source, because they have never been given the tools to understand how reality works, which is why we are sharing these principles with you, because they literally are an instruction manual for how reality works. Exactly in the same way that if you had an instruction manual to operate a piece of machinery or drive a car, you would follow the instructions, the machine would operate, the car would drive. It is no different. We're not giving you philosophies. We're actually describing how reality physically works.
Right.
So just follow the instructions.
Yes.
So you said that expansion is forever.
Yes.
Then whoever transforms into the non-physical plane, like dead people, will they also experience expansion?
Yes. You keep on changing, you keep on learning, you keep on growing, you keep on transforming.
But you said that timelessness doesn't allow you to change.
I never said timelessness was a quality of the spirit world.
So I thought I'm talking.
Timelessness is a quality of the one that experiences nothing. Some version of time and space are experienced on every other level. When we say timelessness, we are referring to the one that has no self-awareness and no experience of itself.
So even above 333,000 cycles per second, you will still have some version of time and change.
Yes, it's just more flexible, that's all. You can just do different things with it. It's not as structured, it's not as strict.
I have a question on what is my current
signature frequency?
At this particular moment?
Yes.
It's fluctuating between 185 and 195,000 cycles per second.
Generally, how close is it to my intentions? My understanding is that we match our frequency or our vibration to what we're intending.
In a sense, although that's an oversimplification, remember that the kind of frequency that we're describing to you is not something that your science even understands yet.
Okay.
We're not talking about brain frequencies and things like that.
Okay.
This is an overall signature vibration that extends into multidimensional levels of your being.
Okay.
So how often is it aligned with your intention is a little bit of an open-ended question because it depends on what you mean by intention.
So when I channel each night, it is raised?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes?
What does my frequency look like to you? Can you see like...
At this particular moment, your overall frequency is somewhere around 135 to 137,000 cycles per second as we read you right now. Understand that most people on your planet, on average at that time, operate between 40 to 60,000 cycles per second. The threshold between physical reality and spirit is 333,000 cycles per second. Most of you, when you transition into fourth density, when you upgrade yourselves and have your peaceful reality, finally, that you create peace on your planet, you'll be operating above the 200,000 cycle per second range. Our civilization operates roughly on average about 290,000 to 300,000 cycles per second at this point in our evolution. So that gives you some sense of a range.
So everyone in this room is fourth density, is that right?
You are moving into fourth density by your own choice, which simply means you're upgrading your energy, you're upgrading your frequency. You're allowing yourself to know that you can actually experience a reality of creativity, love, and peace, whereas many people on your planet don't have those belief systems and therefore operate at a lower frequency.
Is anyone
but that's their choice.
Higher than fourth, like fifth density, or is that possible to be
higher than fourth density?
Yeah.
Not while being physical, no.
Not while being physical.
No.
So at
Then
a
you
certain...
transition into fifth density, which is another name for what you call the spirit realm.
So when you reach that threshold, then your body moves into another...
You will no longer be physical.
What frequency level does that occur at?
Fifth density.
Fifth.
Yes, fifth density, above 333,000 cycles per second. And up.
So by raising your frequency, that automatically happens? Like you'll just disappear?
Well, eventually, but remember that it automatically happens, yes, in a sense. That's why we call ourselves, in our civilization, quasi-physical. We still have physicality, but we also have many of the traits of spirit. Time and space for us are very flexible, very malleable. We're not anchored to it in the same way that many of you are. But the idea is that you experience that transition all the time when you die.
Yeah, I have a few topics I'd like to discuss with you.
Yeah.
The first one being my frequency.
Yes.
Over the past 3 years, I've worked a lot on transforming my limiting beliefs. I've gone through a lot of what you call the watermelon seed effect.
All right.
And so I'm
Easing yourself out in a new direction. Pop.
Oh, it's very fun. And yeah, so just to sort of get a measure for my sake over that period of time, I'd like to know sort of the difference in my frequency of, I guess, generally the past couple weeks. And about 3-4 weeks ago, I went through one of these watermelon seed periods. So I'd like to know the difference between before and after.
Going through the experience, most likely you were somewhere between 215,000 and 230,000 cycles per second. But then you will lower the frequency to acclimate and apply what you learned into your physical reality to some degree. So most likely you went down to about 165, 185,000 cycles per second in order to do the application back into physical reality. That's a typical thing to do.
Okay. And when you said when I came out of it, I was at...
Well, when you go through an experience of high energy, you usually then come out of it in a way where you have to then apply what you learned, apply what you experienced into the physical reality, which means you usually have to lower the vibration a little bit to be more harmonious with the physical reality around you.
Okay.
Yes? Because the actual experience is a peak experience.
And things will fluctuate and go up and down as they need to in order for you to align with whatever reality you need to apply what you learned in. Yes?
Yes, I applied it.
All right. Well,
And-
congratulations.
Thank you. And you said before that 200,000 cycles per second was fourth density. Yes? Beginning?
Well, you're transitioning. Yes, it's about the beginning of fourth density. Yes, but you're all transitioning somewhere up and down. There are averages, sometimes lower, sometimes higher. Just depends on what you're doing. But yes, you can use that as a demarcation in general for the idea of the beginning border of fourth density experience. Yes.
I'm excited to hear that.
Oh, all right. Then your frequency just went up a bit.
Yes, because I do a lot of lucid dreaming. So much when I'm in the lucid dream, I say, I've been here a while.
All right.
And then when I'm in physical reality and walking outside, it sort of it feels very similar to that.
Yes, well, that's the idea, is to allow physical reality to become dreamlike and allow your dreams to become more real, because then you start to blend them together and understand it's all one kind of projection of consciousness. It just has slightly different variants in it that make it one thing or another, but it's all a dream. And it's all real in that sense.
I'm feeling that.
All right.
What is the vibration needed to be able to reach full telepathic communication?
It depends. But when telepathy is experienced in people who are bonded in that way and matching each other's frequencies, so they're having the same thoughts at the same time, usually the frequency is above 200,000 cycles per second.
Then can you tell me which vibration I am at now?
At this particular moment, about 113,000 cycles per second.
I want to ask what my frequency level is when I am detached of my negative beliefs that are in that like neutral state, like going back and forth.
Between neutral and negative?
But yes, and positive, because it's like flipping all over.
All right.
Okay.
There is in your story, in your lore, I'm talking about all of you in general, this idea of something being special about 144,000.
Yeah, I know exactly.
It gets interpreted in a number of different ways that are misunderstood.
Okay.
But that's the balance point vibration. That's the central neutral vibration, because below that is possibly more in the negative direction. Above that is more probably in the positive direction. 144,000 cycles per second is more in the neutral balance point. Now, I'm not saying you're negative if you're below that. I'm just saying that most people on your planet actually operate somewhere around 40 to 50,000 cycles per second. They're basically sleepwalking.
Mm-hmm.
When you arrive at 144,000 cycles per second, you're in the balance point where suddenly there's more probabilities. You can see a little bit farther, and you can start moving toward the idea of acting on your passion more readily and raise your frequency more and more and more. So fluctuations for you specifically at this time, using 144,000 as the balance point, when you fluctuate back and forth through it, can, let's say, sometimes on extremely rare occasions, go down to maybe 70,000 cycles per second, but it doesn't last very long. You usually will pop right back up to at least 150 or 160 or more. That's how we read your energy.
150, 160 was a high end? Okay.
No, it's not the high end you've ever been. I'm just saying that's more likely where you sort of pop up to and sort of settle in for a while. But you have peaks like everyone.
Yeah.
Many of you have been above 200,000 now and then, and that's a wonderful place to be.
Yes.
Of course, they're all wonderful places to be.
True.
Because each serves its purpose.
Yeah.
But you get our point.
Yes.
I was also wondering about how the grays are at a higher frequency than we are.
No, not necessarily.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
Depends on which grays you're talking about. First of all, please don't lump them all together. There are several varieties of them.
Oh, okay. Some are lower. Some are lower than us.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not really even about that. Some of them have a specific purpose and job that necessitates them operating at a certain vibration. So lower and higher in that context is relative, because they couldn't necessarily do the job they need to do at other frequency levels. So they may operate from time to time with higher frequency levels, but overall, for certain factions that are involved in the hybridization agenda, they have to operate at one particular frequency level that is relatively lower, but it's the frequency level that necessitates the job they need to do. So in that sense, it's the perfect level for them.
Okay. Now you said 144,000 cycles per second, that most beings who operate below that are in a negative state of being?
Well, not so much that they're in a negative state of being per se, but they may be exhibiting some, shall we say, less conscious awareness of certain things. Now, if you want to say that that's a more negative state, that there are more negative limitations in that sense that they're experiencing, well, all right, you can put it that way. But it's not necessarily an automatic assumption that if they're below that frequency, that they're automatically a more negative being fundamentally. They may just, again, be operating with certain tools that don't necessarily allow them the freedom to explore things that they might, at another time, learn to explore.
Okay.
Can I ask you what is my vibrational...
Sure you want to ask that? Because here's the thing about asking that. I'll give it to you if you want.
Okay.
Let's say a person is vibrating at 170,000 cycles per second. The moment they ask, what is my vibration, it goes down.
I was just curious because I heard this yesterday and I had never heard that before.
It's a collective frequency that is a combination of many different things your scientists don't even know about yet. So I'll tell you right now, you're operating somewhere around 155,000 cycles per second, which isn't bad. But the point is when you ask, it goes down.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not about asking what the frequency is, it's about living it.
Understand.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Now it went back up.
I'd like to talk a little bit about frequencies and resonance, and I think some of the things you've already mentioned might also fit in as we go. So you mentioned in a transmission recently that this idea of the 11th harmonic and how it could break down viruses or cancer cells or bacteria.
Yes.
And initially, I did some research. I found these amazing videos where I saw this happening. But I thought that the idea of an 11th harmonic seemed like a strange relationship. And so I wondered is there something there to do with the golden ratio to the power of 5, or am I missing the mark completely?
No, you are sort of on target. There's a little bit more that needs to be discovered by you to understand all the nuances of it, but you're generally going in the right direction.
Okay. Because from what I'm understanding about this is it's about the relationship between one frequency and another and the resonance of those frequencies.
Yes.
Okay. So then based on that as well, following along this research, it turned out that the COVID virus in general seemed to be about 300,000 hertz was what was the 11th harmonic frequency. And I remember you mentioning that people have a signature frequency between 150,000 and 300,000. Is that correct?
It's a little bit different what we're referring to than what you're discovering in your reality, though there are connections between it. But the kind of frequency resonance signatures that we give to many of you are a kind of thing that your science doesn't know about yet.
Okay. So I'm mixing up two ideas there that I shouldn't be connecting.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then on that note, because I know that you've mentioned as well that the Sasani people are experiencing time, I think, 10 times faster than we are.
Yes.
And I would think then also it means that the frequencies that you're experiencing or resonating at are 10 times higher. And
yes.
I wondered if...
Not exactly in the way, again, we give you those frequencies, but yes. Remember, in general, we are saying that 333,000 cycles per second of the kind of frequency, of the kind of energy we're talking about, is the borderline between physical and non-physical reality. This is a different scale of things that we're talking about here.
Okay, so what I should be exploring or researching is the kind of frequencies. If I want to better understand what I'm looking at, I need to better understand that aspect of it.
Yes, and basically you're simply talking about whatever your equipment is capable of doing in terms of identifying the frequency of a particular thing like a virus. All you really have to do is go 11 times higher.
Okay.
In order to counteract the idea. Because you're pushing it up, in a sense. This principle is the same in both frequency counts, in both scales. You're pushing it up with a harmonic that induces it to raise a frequency to a point where the effects of the virus at the lower frequency can no longer exist.
So even though there's a resonance there, because even the idea of resonance is not positive or negative, it is simply
Correct.
about how the two relate to each other.
Correct.
Okay. So the other thing on that note is when you offer someone their current signature frequency, does the higher mind have a separate signature frequency, or is that contained in that idea?
No, it has a separate frequency. We're only talking about a frequency that relates to the idea of physical reality. The higher mind would be operating, as I said, above 333,000 cycles per second. That's where you shift from physical to non-physical reality.
Because that's fifth density.
Yes.
Okay. So then one of the other things that we've spoken about before, or you've mentioned, is the gamma states and the brain waves being between 40 and 100 hertz.
Yes.
And that helps us connect better with our higher selves, our higher mind.
Yes.
And is that because there is a resonance that is created there? Because I think that's where I'm struggling to connect the dots per se.
Yes, there is a resonant relationship there. Yes.
Okay. So by being in the gamma state, that in effect also changes our signature frequency, which then also puts us in a more resonant frequency of the higher mind.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for helping me.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Thank you.
And then if I may, a couple more things. So you've kind of already touched on this, but it also means that lower frequencies aren't necessarily negative. They just might be dissonant to a
and also may have their own harmonics that are positive for a variety of different reasons and different effects. Yes.
Okay. And even this idea of integrating as we move forward is about integrating these lower frequencies. It's not about negating them or invalidating them.
No, it's about raising your frequency in a way that is harmonic with the frequencies that you need to maintain a physical reality perspective.
Okay, great.
I have a question about kind of switching gears here about meditation.
Permission slip, yes.
And using frequencies, which are actually like binaural beats, sometimes people call them, specific frequencies. Is there a specific frequency that helps people get into that you would suggest that people seek out when meditating or trying to align?
Well, again, different things will work for different people in different ways, of course. But in general, one that is sort of, let's say, representative of the collective consciousness is what is often referred to in your language as the Schumann frequency of Earth, 7.85 cycles per second. Now, the Schumann frequency can change, and it often does, and can go up as high as 30 cycles per second or more, depending upon the overall collective emotional energy of your societies on Earth. But the base frequency of about 7.85 cycles per second can be effective as an archetypal frequency that reflects the collective consciousness connection to Earth and its expression as nature. So you can begin there and experiment with it if you wish, but let your imagination be your guide as to what it leads you to, because again, remember, the permission slips you are attracted to because at that moment they will work for you, even if they don't work for someone else. That's why you're attracted to use them.
Okay.
Does that help?
That does help.
All right.
So talking to you this way is preparing our frequency to some degree, but at the same time, we still really would not be comfortable having contact with you because of the level of your particular frequency. Whereas with the Shalanaya and with the Yael, their frequency is much closer to ours.
Yes.
And so we would be able to interact with them just the way we would another human? Or
if you raise your frequency enough, yes. They're closer to you, they're not identical to you. That's why the exercises are important, and the absorption of the information that we share that raises your frequency by following the formula and acting on your passion are all crucial to raise your frequencies to the level where you will be more vibrationally compatible with the Shalanaya, with the Yael, but you don't have as far to go as you would with us or other beings of higher frequency.
So, like, what level frequency would we need to experience contact with the Yael or Shalanaya comfortably?
A consistent, relatively speaking, frequency of about 150,000 cycles per second.
Okay, and then to experience your frequency or have contact with you, what level would our frequency need to be on to be comfortable?
More along the line of 250,000 cycles per second.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes.
So, what frequency do we as individuals need to be vibrating at to reach fourth density? And how far is the current Earth collective from reaching that goal?
It is advantageous for you to be somewhere around 100,000 cycles per second to maintain the momentum of moving into fourth density. Now, the collectivity of your planet, again, remember, you never change the planet you're on. You shift to a new version of Earth that is already reflective of the higher vibration when you experience a higher vibration around you. It's not the same planet. So to give you the answer of what's going on collectively on this version of Earth, or this version, or this is a dynamically moving answer. But right now, let's freeze a moment and say that on your planet, you will find the average vibration is somewhere between 50,000 and 80,000 cycles per second. But there are many that are way above that, but there is a significant number that are well below that. So again, the average for this particular frozen moment is what we just told you. But it's always dynamically shifting and changing, and you're never changing the world you're on. Remember that. You're navigating through different versions of Earth every single moment, billions of times a second.
Okay, thank you. And what about the hybrid children? Like, what frequency range would you say they will be the ones that come here?
Some of them may be able to lower and raise their frequency in a way that would make them slightly more vibrationally compatible with some humans, but for a while it will take some time to adapt to your reality and some time for humanity to adapt to them. But on average, most of them will not necessarily go lower than 180,000 cycles per second, and most of them will average somewhere in the mid 200,000 range, at least.
And the majority of the people on our planet currently are below 100,000?
Correct.
Okay. But those of us that are exploring this path of transformation and letting go of negative energies and things like that,
usually rise above that.
What range is that generally?
On average, the people that are willing to open up and explore the idea and expand the idea of their consciousness, willing to let go of fear-based and negative belief systems, willing to express being of service to all and unconditional love as best as possible, can certainly at least average 150,000 cycles per second to 190,000 cycles per second. So there is an overlap there between the hybrid children and humanity.
And just so that for those that may not be familiar with this, 333,000 cycles per second is the transformation from physical to non-physical energy, right?
Yes.
And so that gives you an idea that, and the Epsilon are running close to 333,000 cycles per second, right?
Close. We operate only in the 300,000s and go up and down according to what we need to go up and down for a variety of reasons. But yes, the transition from physical to non-physical reality is 333,000 cycles per second, although your scientists don't yet understand what it is that exactly measures.
So the Anunnaki who created the Homo sapien that went against their rules, so to speak. What frequency range were those beings?
They were operating somewhere around the 100,000, 120,000, 130,000 vibrations per second range.
So it also shows how you can make great advances technologically, but not necessarily have a high frequency to a point, right?
As witnessed by what happened with the beings, the parallel reality humans that mutated into the Greys. Yes, they had a very advanced technology, but their spirituality was lacking.
What frequency range were they functioning at?
In the midst of the idea of the destruction of their world, they were only operating somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Gosh, it's just amazing. But at the same time, you've said that we really don't have to be concerned about negative ETs because their frequency range would not be compatible with ours in some way or something.
Correct. You would have to match that frequency for yourself to have any interaction awareness at all. And even the idea of interactional awareness actually comes with the idea of raising your frequency. Because remember, negative energy segregates and separates and divides, whereas higher frequencies integrate.
So most of the ETs that we're interacting with then would be higher frequency ETs, yes?
High enough that they pose no threat to you.
I see.
Even though there may be misunderstandings, even though they may have very different ways of interacting, nothing that you're interacting with as humans on Earth are actually being exposed to what you would actually literally call negative extraterrestrials. You are simply unaware of them.
Okay, you've said that to access the subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and so on, that we have to raise our vibration.
Yes.
But how do we know that we are in that state? How do we know that we've accessed the subconscious or the unconscious mind? And do you have a tip to achieve the most frequent type of vibration needed to access the subconscious and the unconscious?
Last question first, follow the formula. Because
Right.
it leaves nothing relevant out and raises your vibration when you're acting on your passion. And the question, how do we know when we're there, will become obvious when you actually have raised your vibration. To ask the question means the vibration is not high enough. When you are in the high enough frequency, that question will no longer be relevant and it will be exactly apparent what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So raising your vibration will eliminate the need to ask a question, when am I in that vibration? How do I know when I'm in that vibration? It's a self-canceling idea.
Is there a frequency level that you can mention that you would need to be at in order to receive that information?
It may be slightly different for everyone, but in general, it usually happens for most humans on your planet when you have achieved something above 180,000 cycles per second.
So if you're in the channeling state, so to speak, or you're following your passion, so you're in that state, there's
Yes.
different levels of excitement and full consciousness commitment to the experience, because maybe things are running in the background,
Let me
etc.
correct that.
Okay.
There are different expressions of excitement, but there aren't different levels of excitement. Excitement is excitement. Passion is passion. It can express itself in different ways, and there can be different vibrational states to those expressions. But the raw core idea of passion or excitement is a pure vibrational state without different levels in it. That's the point we're making, is that when you're actually functioning more holistically in the vibration of passion and excitement, the idea of much of the so-called confusion about what level you're on disappears, because by definition, what comes with that is a complete recognition by definition of exactly what pure state you're in.
Okay, so I know that a lot of people, after they experience you and the communications from you, they feel a deep sense of inspiration and excitement about their lives and what they can do.
Yes.
comparing that to, say, someone who loves to paint, but while they're painting, they're thinking about the bills they have to pay or something like that, even
they're
though
not in their passion. They're not in their passion at that moment.
So you would be able to feel that inspired sense that we can feel after interacting with you. That would be a true indication of that higher frequency, yes?
Yes, stay there.
Okay.
No matter what you have to think of. The idea is, again, you must remember that this all happens in perfect timing. There will be a time when, if it is important for you to ponder the idea of a bill, it will come in the form that is still part of your passion. It won't be a distraction. It won't be a less than experience. It won't distract you from the passion of the moment. You'll find the right time to be passionate about the idea of paying a bill, if that is something that is truly necessary as part of your passion. So these things come in pure form. They don't obstruct each other. They don't interact in a way that is destructive to one another. It still allows you to come in a form in perfect timing that allows you to experience each and every one of those things in its pure, exciting form.
And the level of the higher mind that you're describing, that you can have these conversations with, what it would be the frequency range of that consciousness level?
Above 333,000 cycles per second.
All the way up to?
Well, it depends. The higher mind can have quite a large range to it, depending upon what it needs to adjust its frequency to tap into information that the physical personality may need. It's not, however, unusual for the general range to be, and we understand that this appears in your reality as a kind of a multiple synchronistically, but it can go from about 333,000 cycles per second, normally, generally, with exceptions, up to about 666,000 cycles per second is usually all that's necessary. Beyond the 666,000 cycles per second, you're now getting into the range of the soul, which can go up to about 777 cycles per second, thousands, of course. And then the oversouls are usually above 777,000, maybe up to 999,000. And again, these are all convenient figures for you that relate to your physical reality as you understand how vibrations exist hierarchically to represent different levels and layers, and there can be different ways of looking at this. So don't get stuck on these numbers. We're giving you a generalization in the same way that you could say, well, where does the air end and where does space begin, or where does water begin and ice begin? There's some fluidity to these barriers and these gray zones, so to speak, as to where transitions are made. But I'm giving you a general understanding of these things that can serve you in the way that you need to be served for now.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Bashar. My name is Kim. I'm talking to you from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You talk a lot about frequencies, matching your preferences, and you use numbers like 3,300 or 6,600 and up. But in all honesty, I'm not really sure that I understand what those frequencies feel like. You know, when I wake up in the morning, what frequency am I at? I couldn't tell you. Or when I walk my dog, what frequency am I at? I wouldn't know, and nor do I understand what frequency my preferences are at. So I feel like I'm swimming in the deep end of an ocean on this issue. I wonder if you might be able to shed some light on this in an everyday sort of way and give me some clarity. Thank you very much. I think you're terrific.
The frequencies we give when we're talking about frequencies in the thousands, not just hundreds, but in the thousands, 333,000 as a frequency, times per second. These are frequencies your scientists don't take into account yet. This is the total frequency of your physical form in combination with your higher mind that represents the state of being you are at this point in your life, and based on the state of being you shift to in any endeavor you may undergo. As a scale, you could say that most people on your planet at this point are sort of operating somewhere around an average of about 50,000 cycles per second.
But the idea is raising your frequency when following your passion can take you above 100 and even close to 200,000 cycles per second, which represents a more realized, a more fully realized version of yourself that is capable of experiencing creativity and joy and actions that are more representative of the things that are passionate in your life: excitement, curiosity, creativity, love. So the higher the frequency between the idea of 50,000 and 200,000 is going toward the range of the fourth density human to experience physical reality from a higher level, where there's more experience of synchronicity, creativity, love, so on and so forth. Above 333,000 cycles per second, when we're talking about this kind of frequency, that's the borderline between physical and non-physical reality. But again, this is a combined collective frequency between the physical being, all the belief systems, the higher mind, the theme you explore, and all this that your science really doesn't understand yet. This frequency can be discovered in the electromagnetic auric field around your physical body if you develop devices that are sensitive enough to read it. And then you can begin to understand exactly what we're referring to when we talk about these kinds of frequencies. For the most part, however, as we said, the majority of your planet is operating at a relatively low frequency, although sometimes there can be peaks up to 80,000 cycles per second. But you now have a general idea of the range of what this represents.
And can you tell us a little bit about the frequency of first contact? Like, you've helped us understand that human beings operate at different frequency ranges.
Yes.
And that the higher frequency states tend to be between 175,000 and up to about...
Yes. Open contact will require a stable frequency above 200,000 cycles per second.
Really? Yes.
Yes.
So are you saying the vast majority of people on the planet, as it stands now, would not experience first contact?
Correct.
And
at least not yet in their reality, in their version of Earth. They may change and experience it later on, but again, we are not expecting the idea, due to the probabilities of choices that you have on your planet, the vast majority that exists now, to be the majority that will exist during open contact. Those that shift to the other Earth will join those already there, already existing in that alternate reality, and they will form a new majority. But the majority of the individuals on your planet now, as you understand it, on the version of Earth you experience now, will not experience contact with us in the way that you understand that concept. They may experience other things.
When you say contact with you, are you talking about the Sassani beings, or are you talking about Pleiadian and other
There is
species?
a range. There is a range. Some may experience every variation you can imagine. Some will not experience us at all.
So if you're on the Earth now where you can see the other realities, the negative ones that are happening on the planet, but you're seeing it through the glass wall in that sense, will that be the case for those who experience contact, where they can see so many divergent realities?
Some may be capable. For some, it will simply not be relevant for them to perceive it that way. It depends on the individual and the theme that they are exploring and what they will do with that.
Do you expect then that large segments of the population would literally disappear from the reality of those that are going to have contact?
Yes.
Okay, and so that would not necessarily, how would that occur? How would that occur?
You are constantly shifting, remember.
Yes.
It may not actually be such a big mystery. The idea would be, just like sometimes you have contact with individuals you call friends, and then sometimes years later you simply find that you haven't seen them for quite a while, and you don't necessarily think anything of it. You just imagine they have gone on to their own path, and that your paths will not necessarily cross again.
You may have different ideas about what that experience will be like, but it won't necessarily be a mystery for many. It'll simply be like people have simply left your life, have gone out of your life. Some may appear to have died, but some may simply not be around for so long that you simply don't think about them anymore, or you wonder where they went, but never encounter them again.
So I would imagine it's not an accident that we're simultaneously going through massive climate change and potentially a massive extinction event in coordination
Not
with
going
the...
to be talking about anything in the way of a prediction, but yes, such things are possible with the shifts going on, because again, you're shifting through versions of Earth. So you may experience a variety of things that are all representative of the splitting prism until you make decisions to align with a particular timeline or path and other versions of Earth that will take you in a different direction.
Well, this will probably make more sense to us as we become more and more used to the level of plasticity where the Earth can shift a great deal, our realities can shift a great deal. And some of the skills that we're learning right now are how to navigate changing realities that may let you feel unmoored or not as grounded to a specific reality.
Yes, temporarily, but it will become a normal state for you, a state you will get used to in the constant idea of shifting, because the more you understand that you are projecting and creating your physical reality, the less you will rely on the idea of stasis as a representation of stability, and the more you will feel comfortable with the idea that change is truly what is stable.
So that would figure into the idea that many humans do not enjoy change, or they believe that change is uncomfortable, fearful, creates anxiety.
Yes.
Those kinds of things is, in a sense, a skill set that we're learning, is how to be in physical reality or as physical reality with greater amounts of change and seemingly unmoored realities without having getting panicky.
It is not getting used to more change. It is getting used to the idea that you're constantly changing.
Because you mentioned when you're in spirit, you can navigate change quite easily.
Yes.
It's the natural flow. You're always experiencing the next chapter, in a sense.
And you are doing so even in physical reality, since that's nothing but a projection of consciousness. Again, it's just that most people on your planet are not aware of it because of the agreement you made to experience the idea of linear time and continuity. But once you accept the idea that you're constantly shifting billions of times per second, you can get used to that idea and form a new understanding and relationship with the idea of change as stability.
So the disorientation that humans often experience around change, this is an issue of definition and attitude?
It is an issue of definition and perspective and attitude, yes. Because again, you're already doing it. That's the irony. You're already changing all the time. You're never the same from moment to moment. It's just about understanding how that serves you in experiencing physical reality.
Is part of our resistance to change the idea that we have to redefine ourselves under new circumstances?
Part of it, yes.
And that perhaps we haven't developed that skill as well as we could have it expressed if we were more clear about who we are and what we're doing here and how this is all happening.
Yes, and those that choose to follow the formula as precisely as possible will find that they actually come to quite enjoy the idea of constant change, because constant change is also the ability to constantly redefine yourself in the way that you prefer to. And therefore, it gives you a sense of freedom.
Now, I know you pretty much answered this question, but I do want to ask it again through the way that this person expressed it. They said, you've talked about how the splitting prism is expanding. In the coming period, is it likely that we will experience sudden dramatic splits where significant parts of the population who are incompatible with the collective vibration suddenly vanish, similar to what you described in the Sasani Shikana experience.
Yes, it's possible. For many people, they may choose to do it a little bit more gently. But yes, it's absolutely possible for someone to have a continuity break like that with linear time.
So was Earth always like a predatory planet? And can you help us understand about our relationship to having an environment that is essentially predatory?
It was not always such, but the idea again is that the Earth is what you might call a tough school. It is a school of cycles. It is a school of positive and negative and polarities and experience of such. So it has fluctuated back and forth many times in different ways. But the idea, as we have said, is that the primary environment of your planet as you understand it in nature is predatory, mostly because you are still exploring the idea of predation. Remember that as you change yourself in the present, you change your past. So the past you think was always there wasn't always there.
And it seems like the dinosaurs were extremely predatory.
That's the past you believe in right now.
Can you explain that further? I mean, like, it is pretty amazing that we have these dinosaurs in our history of our planet. That is so extraordinary.
In the history that you're creating from your present.
So this change in our history, what level of vibration would our civilization need to be at to have a completely different version of Earth that didn't have dinosaurs?
Or had different kinds of animals that weren't necessarily exhibiting or reflecting the idea of predation in the way that you experience today, would be above 200,000 cycles per second in your overall frequency.
And what percentage of our planet population is at that frequency level presently, would you say?
Less than 2%.
And on balance, then, the population is functioning at what?
You want an average for the entire collective of your planet?
Yes.
Somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Okay, and so will contact be limited to people who are functioning over 200,000 cycles per second, or just in the initial stages, those individuals would perhaps have contact burst?
It might be that they will experience certain kinds of contact before others, but that can help others raise their vibration, knowing that that's going on as well. It doesn't have to be exactly 200,000 for there to be some form of open contact. And again, remember, it depends on what you're having contact with. But the idea is it can start somewhere around 150 to 160,000 cycles per second, minimally, slowly, and it can build. What we are talking about is that above 200,000 cycles per second, there would be something considered to be normal, constant, open contact.
And so for an individual to have contact with you, what kind of frequency level would they need to have in order to have a good experience?
At this particular point, again, definitely above 200,000 cycles per second, probably closer to 215,000 cycles. At this point.
And would one of the key things of individuals functioning in that level is that they are genuinely able to stay in a positive state no matter what they encounter?
Yes, because choosing anything else simply doesn't make sense to a being operating on that level.
And their consciousness would be much more clear in terms of all of their, or most of their beliefs, or important beliefs.
Let me put it to you in an extremely overly simplistic kind of way. Would you be willing right now to punch yourself in the face as hard as you can? Yes or no?
No.
Well, it would be that kind of an obvious choice to those operating above 200,000 cycles per second that they simply wouldn't choose something that doesn't make sense for them, that they don't prefer. It's simply not on the list of choices. Yes, they know it's always a possibility, but the probability is so low that they simply would not choose it in a practical day-to-day sense. Just like you would not choose to punch yourself in the face.
So part of our challenge is to let go of the ideas of self-recrimination and guilt, I suppose.
Yes.
The ideas of what it truly means to be spiritual.
To be a spirit. To be a spirit, not spiritual, to be a spirit in physical terms.
And what kinds of emotions would that eliminate?
You would no longer choose to feel the idea of fear or sadness in that sense, or anger or hate. Those kinds of things simply wouldn't make sense to a being operating on that level. Again, in much the same way that you have chosen not to punch yourself in the face. It would be that visceral of a choice. It would not feel correct. It would feel damaging as physically punching yourself, to choose the idea of hate and sorrow and sadness and fear, so on and so forth.
And on this level, we are actually able to tolerate huge amounts of dissonance and seeing things on television that are violent or unpleasant, and not feel what we would feel if we were above 200,000 cycles per second, when we would immediately disconnect from that kind of input, I suppose.
You would either disconnect from the input, or you would know how to use it to positive effect.
So that's the other piece. If you are going to see it, then you know how to use it to get a positive effect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. This individual is saying, in dreams, I've experienced being able to levitate, to connect telepathically, to fly a UFO, and shape-shifting. When these things become a part of our physical reality in a waking state, will that be a physical reality as materially dense as the one we know now? Or do these things happen in a reality slightly less physical and more spiritual and dreamlike? How does the exchange between spiritual and physical realities occur metaphysically?
Yes, it will be in a higher vibration, because that's what you typically refer to as fourth density physical reality, a higher frequency, still material as an experience, but of a higher frequency. The idea of the difference between spiritual and physical existence or experience is, again, simply one of degree. One of a degree of a higher frequency as opposed to a lower frequency. There is a threshold to this within material existence that starts somewhere around the 200,000 cycles per second range. And above that, you start to experience things that are a little bit more, as you say, spiritual rather than physically dense. So yes, fourth density physical reality will be of a higher frequency in which more things like you have described are capable of occurring.
Will we be able to board motherships and find or meet our closest galactic relatives?
Eventually. At some point. It'll be different for different people in terms of the timing of open contact. But yes, at some point.
So I think you've said this before, but what is the frequency range that you need to be at in order to experience ET contact?
It depends on the type of extraterrestrial. But in general, you will find that it is good to be somewhere in the 180,000 cycles to above 200,000 cycles per second in terms of your overall frequency in order for those experiences to be relatively common.
So like when you talked about the frequency on the planet being something around 80,000 cycles per second for the conglomerate of all the humanity, is that correct? Did I get that right?
We were simply saying that the majority of humanity is functioning somewhere below that level.
So emotionally, what kind of a state would that be reflective of, say, versus someone who's at 125,000 or 175,000 cycles per second?
At 175,000 cycles per second, there would be no concept of victimhood, no concept of unworthiness, no concept of non-deservability, no concept of struggle.
And yet you would still be physical, and you'd be on a different earth in a sense.
Yes, and you would experience challenges in a very different way, in a very different light, from a very different perspective. They would be part and parcel of your growth. They would not be something that is done to you, but you would understand that they come through you as part of the agreement, as part of the theme that you chose to explore as a physical entity.
And at 333,000 cycles per second, when you shift over into non-physicality,
well, then you are in spirit. Then you awaken. Then you have knowledge. Then you know things. Then all your questions are answered. Then you understand all of the consequences of all of the choices you made every second of your physical experience. And you absorb all of that and decide what to do next, how to move on, how to incorporate, so to speak, even though you are not corporeal, how to incorporate that into what it is you decide you will now experience next.
So is there a frequency that telepathy is a natural, automatic kind of thing?
Yes, the frequency of unconditional love.
And what about like in cycles per second?
Well, the idea, again, is that when you operate above 200,000 cycles per second, then it becomes more natural to experience the idea of telepathic communication.
And that experience of telepathic communication can be experienced as like hearing the person's voice talking to you in your head?
It can be, but true telepathy is more of a simple receiving of an entire block of information in the form of suddenly simply knowing what the other person is intending. It may come as images, it may come as voices, but it is more likely simply to come as a knowing. You just suddenly know it. There's no mistaking it. It cannot be mistaken for imagination. It is simply that the knowledge is suddenly within you as if it has always been there.
So is there such a thing as like a telepathic conversation with another person that's in another room because your frequency is so high?
Yes, although such a conversation wouldn't last very long in terms of time, because again, you have instant knowingness, an instant exchange of knowledge and perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any frequency that can reverse aging?
Staying in the gamma frequency by following your passion between 40 cycles and 100 cycles per second in the brain will usually keep you in a centered, balanced place that will make it less likely you will experience time and aging. But you will still mature in some way, shape, or form because that's what you've decided to experience on Earth in your physical reality. But you can remain very vibrant and very vital for a long time. That's why following your passion is so important. It keeps you in the center, it keeps you in the moment, and therefore you age less and experience less effects of the idea of time because you're creating less time to experience.
But isn't time doesn't, if time doesn't exist,
the experience of time exists. But the idea is that the more you stay in the moment by acting on your passion, you experience less of the time effect.
Yes, that's true. You forgot what the time is and you don't know how much time has passed.
Exactly.
Yes. That's the point.
The amount of time you feel like you experience is actually the amount of time you've experienced. So if
so the point is
for everyone else, but you only feel like it was 15 minutes, then you've only aged 15 minutes.
So the point is the life should be so much fun so you don't know what time it is.
Exactly.
That's the point. So you will stop aging.
You will slow down. You will not completely stop, but you will slow down because again, you are agreeing to participate in a collective agreement to some degree. with the idea that Earth experiences time in the way that it does, but you can alter it to a great degree for yourself and remain relatively young while those around you may age faster. But you will not completely eliminate it because otherwise you couldn't function in physical reality.
But I think that there are people living on Earth that live 190 years, 300 years, some llamas.
A few. And this is where you're all heading. I'm simply saying that at this particular point in your evolution, not all of you necessarily need to experience that because you have certain themes that you want to accomplish, and then many of you will simply decide to move on.
And you always talked about these frequencies that the planet right now has about 70,000 of cycles per second of vibration. And I'm interested, what are the cities on the planet, like a few cities with the highest vibration?
Those in the most natural settings, basically, although it can fluctuate. Some in urban centers, can be patches of very high vibration, but overall, most of your cities that are in more natural settings among trees and mountains and streams and forests will have the general higher vibrations.
So the people are automatically tuned into nature, and this is why the frequency of the whole city is higher.
Yes, in general, on average. Again, it doesn't mean there aren't pockets of high vibration or even higher vibration in some of your cities that are not necessarily set exactly in nature, but it is compartmentalized in certain areas.
Talking about frequencies, here's a question about grays. You've said that grays are only operating at a frequency of 50,000 cycles per second and thus have a negative.
Stop. We didn't say that they had a negative energy just because they're operating at a lower frequency. That is an assumption and an interpretation on the part of the questioner. There are different levels of grays at different points in your history, in your timeline. Some of them have higher frequencies and some of them have lower frequencies depending on where they're at. So don't misinterpret the idea of a lower vibration being automatically a negative thing.
You've answered the question.
Yes.
So when you're speaking about our frequency, in your terms, frequency is literally our very conventional science idea of cycles per second or hertz.
Yes, but we're incorporating more than your scientists know about when we give you the answer to those frequency questions.
Okay.
Your scientists haven't arrived at that yet.
Okay.
It's still cycles per second.
Okay. Is this the same thing as the vibration that so many spiritual teachers say it is our job to raise? I mean, that is if we prefer to take the next step in evolution and ascension. Is it the same thing?
You have, all of you, a core frequency in physical reality that exists on the threshold between physical and non-physical reality of 333,000 cycles per second as we measure these things. The idea is the degree of difference between that frequency and the frequency you are as a physical being based on all of the belief systems within you and how they may impede you from being that higher frequency.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about that threshold. How then is it that some beings who are in spirit, who are of a negative polarity, or to put it in terms of law of one, are in service to self, are at a higher frequency? I'm assuming, I'm extrapolating this from the fact that they are in spirit. Yes. Than those of us incarnate on earth who are focusing on love and choosing the service to others, right?
Yes, that's a very good question. The answer is the lower astral realm, the first stage of non-physical reality, has a component in it that is very strongly connected still to the earth cycle vibration. And thus a spirit can decide or can simply find themselves, based on the belief systems they brought over into non-physical reality, still at frequencies where they can express certain ideas of negative experience. It's like starting over again on a different scale.
Oh.
Do you understand? So in the lower astral, above 333,000 cycles per second, transitioning into the lower astral, in a sense, though this is not accurate, but in a sense, it's sort of like you're starting at zero again.
Okay.
So you can have lower astral vibrations that can be expressed negatively.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. Okay, and so maybe I'm mistakenly equating frequency with mood, but...
Oh, yes.
Yes, I am mistaking that?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be associated, but that's not always the case.
Okay.
You can be very happy at 150,000 cycles per second. You can also be very miserable at 149,000 cycles per second. It depends on the mix of the belief systems.
It's really based on beliefs rather than how you're feeling?
Feelings are generated by beliefs.
Right.
So yes, it's based on your belief system.
Okay.
Because you can think you feel pretty good, and you can actually be disguising what you really believe.
And you can think you feel pretty bad, but have really helpful beliefs.
Yes. Except for the one that allows you to think that somehow you're not worthy to experience those positive beliefs.
Right. Okay.
One can overwhelm the others depending on what the belief is. So it can be a small fraction of your overall frequency, but it can have very profound effects on the rest of your belief systems depending on what that belief is.
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Does that help?
Yes, but I think I'm gonna have to listen to it back because I'm kind of also thinking about the questions I want to ask. And
all right, you may listen to it back, but I would recommend that you listen to it forward.
yeah, that'll be helpful too.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go for it. The frequency question, mine. I just felt it go down. Oh, wait. It's not based on feeling.
Would you like it to go back up?
Yes.
Think of something you love very much, or someone. Do you have it?
Yes.
167,000 cycles per second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a threshold frequency that we must have? So if you're under that, you will not experience contact?
That depends, and there's a wide range and window of frequencies that will still allow you to experience contact in a certain way. And it can help you develop higher frequencies that will allow you to experience more of it. Again, remember, this will be done in phases, in ways that you can handle, in ways you can absorb, in ways that will allow you to be willing to raise your frequency over time, if that is necessary process for each individual. But the idea is that, generally speaking, in the way that we have delivered frequencies to you, in the way we mean it, in the way we perceive those frequencies, something below 30,000 cycles per second will most likely not experience open contact. It would be too dangerous. Again, the idea of operating even at 40 and 50,000 cycles per second may allow open contact to be relatively distant, remote, or intermittent, even though you may know about it. In terms of interacting with ETs more directly, it will probably be necessary for an individual to operate at least above 80,000 to 100,000 cycles per second in the way that we mean that reading.
Thank you.
Okay, and what is the natural vibrational frequency of a human being without the pre-imposed limitations of a negative or limiting fear-based belief system?
Well, if there are really no limitations that have been imposed upon the life path, and a person simply arrived without any of those, then it would be akin to the idea of an ascended master, and you would be operating somewhere above 300,000 cycles per second. It's unusual, but that's about where you would be.
This person, they call this like seeing through the eyes of the creator, is what the way that they perceived it. But the idea that they got into an altered state of consciousness where they were experiencing reality from a completely different point of view. And what they saw was that everything felt perfect, beautiful, exactly as it should be. They felt distanced from their problems and a true sense of freedom. And they just felt fully supported energetically with effortlessly.
Yes.
And they think is that what you mean by being fully human?
Yes, that's part of the expression, but it also is what we mean by being in alignment with your true self, your true vibration, because it is the true vibration of all that is, because you are a part of all that is. So this individual was truly seeing who they are, what they are, as a reflection of all that is. And therefore that gives them the vibrational state that they need to come from in everything that they do in life in order to continue to flow in that high vibration of being their true self.
And so what vibrational level would that be where you see yourself, I guess, totally from a different vantage point? It's obviously a higher state frequency that
Yes.
has different parameters of its self-definition, those kinds of things, right?
Well, yes, of course.
So what frequency level would you say that requires in order to perceive that?
Well, it's got to be well above the 200,000 cycle per second frequency mark. So there's a range in there, but the idea in general is the closer you are to the frequency of non-physical reality, the more you see things that way. So above 250,000 cycles per second, it's almost impossible not to see things that way.
I see. And then someone else wrote in and said, well, why does the formula only get us close to 200,000 cycles per second, but not fully there? That's the level of non-duality and enlightenment, our natural self. So why can't they just reach the even higher level more completely?
They can. The formula, we've never said it only gets you there. We're giving you an average of where people on your planet are at. So we have never said that it stops there. You can absolutely use the formula to go higher. But how many people on your planet are facile enough with the formula to do so is the question. So we're giving you an average of what most people attain by using it if they're attaining a higher frequency than the average on your planet. It doesn't mean that that's the upper limit.
200,000 cycles per second, does that represent a state of being where you can, in a sense, be experiencing heaven on earth on a more consistent basis?
Yes.
If you were to maintain that?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, because someone else asked the question, well,
at least
why
in
do
your
we only
life.
have it like for brief moments?
At least in your own life. It doesn't mean you won't see that other people may not be doing the things that you would consider to be heaven on earth. It doesn't mean that you start experiencing the entire planet that way necessarily. But in your own life, you would experience it as heaven on earth, no matter what anyone else is doing.
Yeah, because there was another question about, well, why don't people maintain that 200,000? You know, maybe they have a peak moment and they get there and then it go back down again. And
there are a variety of reasons why that happens. A lot of them typically are because they still have certain challenges to face and they have certain belief systems to let go of. So they can have peak moments. The idea of having those peak moments is to retain an experience of what it's like to be there and bring that energy to facing the next challenge. And again, remember, it's not necessarily up and down like this. It's up and down like this where you keep climbing. But the idea is you may lower for a while to deal with something more physically, then raise again, then lower for a while, maybe to help someone else who's on a lower vibration, and you have to sort of equate to them and equal to them and align with them temporarily to help bring them up with you again. So there may be many reasons why the fluctuation occurs, but never assume that you actually go down to the same place again. As your Zen monks say, you never step into the same river twice. It's always flowing, it's always different. So you don't have to assume that coming back down out of that state means you're back down to where you used to be.